Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire Impact podcast show. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today I have the honor of interviewing Russell Van Brocklen, widely known as a New York State Senate-funded researcher. Russell helps parents move beyond confusion and frustration by giving them practical strategies to support children with dyslexia. Through structured literacy, multisensory learning, and strength-based education, he helps struggling readers build academic skills, rediscover the self-confidence, and recognize their unique potential. Russell, welcome to the Inspire Podcast Show.
Thanks for having me.
Is there anything, Russell, you'd like to add so the people who are watching this know a little bit more about your background?
Sure. Well, just so you know where I got started, just so everybody knows, this is the last thing I was ever supposed to be doing with my life. I was supposed to be a bureaucrat for the New York State Assembly. So what happened was it was the late 90s. I was finishing up college, and I wanted to know how laws were created. Not some class. I wanted to know. So I did this insane thing where I signed up for the New York State Assembly internship program. Why was it insane? Because I showed up and I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level. And that means I couldn't do the internship the way it was designed. So they sent it up to the speaker's office. At the time, it was a Democrat out of Manhattan named Sheldon Silver. And his office came back and said, listen, you're not getting rid of this kid because of dyslexia. You're going to get a committee together. You're going to accommodate the living daylights out of him, and you're going to make this work. I don't care what it costs. So they got a committee together, and they came up with a really radical solution. A big part of the internship was being with your peers. I didn't get that. They pulled me out of the pulled me out of the legislative office building, had me march down about a quarter to a half a mile to the Capitol, and put me in the Assembly program and counsel's office for the majority leader that ran the place day to day. And I walked in, and I see immediately why they did it. They had 3 administrative assistants that could help me take my cruddy writing and turn into something I could turn in each week. But they hadn't had an undergrad there in like 30 years. So they treated me like a graduate student. So instead of like answer the phone, get the coffee sort of an internship, I was doing real policy work. It was fantastic. I stayed nights. I stayed weekends. They liked me. I liked them. At the end of the internship, for the academic part, I wrote out instead of doing the big paper, I did a multi-hour Q&A session, a presentation, which was a standard accommodation for me back then. And they put down 15 credits of A-. Now, understand where I'm coming from. I can pick up the phone and talk to the people that run the place. I had all these opportunities. All right. So then this goes back to the political science department at the State University of New York Center at Buffalo. And the political science department looks at it. They don't like these insane accommodations. So they decided to lower my grade from 15 credits of A-. Guess what they lowered it to?
I don't know.
Take a wild guess. It'll shock you.
To it like a C or?
No, they flunked me.
They flunked you? I can't believe that.
15 credits of F. So all of these opportunities I was about to have, they went on the shelf. I decided then and there I was going to dedicate my life to make sure this discrimination never happened to anybody else. So I went to my professors that I still liked, and I said, where can I go to force myself to learn to read in graduate school so I can teach other dyslexics? They said, well, if you like politics and if you like law, it's an easy answer. Law school. The belly of the beast, where you read and write more than anybody. So I went and audited a contracts class and a property class. My second day of contracts, the professor calls on me. What they do in American law schools, they use the Socratic method. If you don't know the answer, which nobody does the first week, then they will ask you questions that you can't answer to embarrass you publicly until you eventually adapt. But that didn't happen to me. I didn't respond as a student. I responded as the professor's equal. What you need to understand is my professor was a professor longer than I was alive at that point. So I not only answered correctly, I attacked him. should have seen the look on his face. So we're going back and forth. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Finally, after 15 minutes, he throws up his arm and says, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. In the interest of time, I need to move on to the next case. I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I go back to the New York State Senate because my senator at the time was Senator Joe Bruno, who happened to be the majority leader of the state Senate. And I said, I want you to fund my dyslexia research program. I solve dyslexia. And they said, well, we don't really do that. So they sent me over to the New York State Education Department. And they don't like it that the majority leader sent me over there because they have to take me seriously. So they said, where is this out of? And I said, Buffalo. So they said, okay, we want a State University of New York distinguished professor in psychology to tell us that there's something here. I said, no problem. So I go out to Buffalo. There's two. One just happened to be the professor that gave me the evaluation, started this craziness. So I went to her. Her name was Dr. Irene Halichka. She got the most comprehensive exam she could find in over 3 days, over 20 hours, with the smartest woman I ever met, beating me up to make sure this is real. Then she wrote up a 5-page report and said, I tested this kid a couple of years ago. His base reading and writing is that of a first grader. When the system turns on, his writing is about the 70th percentile of entering grad students. And then it's like a light switch and goes on and off. Here's what's going on. So I bring that back to the education department. They're shocked. This isn't not what they were expecting. So then they said, well, you got to connect this to current research. Only one professor made any sort of sense. His name was Professor James Collins. He wrote a book called Strategies for Struggling Writers, $1.5 million grant from the U.S. Education Department. I extended his work from basic dyslexia, from basic mild case of dyslexia to severe dyslexia. It's supposed to take years. I got his approval in under 2 weeks. See how I'm doing well in graduate school here? That's a theme with dyslexics. Yeah. So then I entered a university-wide business plan competition. I got second place for $15,000. Why I did less than 2 weeks is because there was a deadline for the business plan competition. So then we go and we take the first student. Her name is Michaela. Just so everybody knows, I wanted to test it out with students like myself. They were highly motivated, highly intelligent high school juniors and seniors, I think 16 to 18, with middle school writing skills who were college bound. These were very rare students. I wanted to see what I could do with the best. So we give her the tests for entering graduate students when she's writing at the 8th grade level. Predictably, she scored in the 0 percentile. 5 months later, she scored in approximately the 50th percentile. Her spelling and grammar cleaned up to the grad level, and everybody was really impressed. The next student jumped up to the 70th percentile. Then we got permission and funding from New York State to finally go into the New York State. We went into the Averill Park Central School District for 2 years. And again, the same high quality students. So we had their best teacher, Susan Ford. One class period a day for the school year. They jumped from the middle school writing skills to the 30th to 70th percentile of entering grad students. They all went on to college. They all graduated, GPAs at 2.5 to 3.6. We were 3x as successful as the best dyslexic college at the time. This was in the OOs. That was Landmark College. For less than 1% of the cost. They were over $100,000. We were under $900. And that's how I got started.
Wow, that's more than a mouthful, Russell. I mean, it sounds like an amazing story of all these accomplishments. Congratulations on getting all this stuff done and all those accomplishments that you got. I think a lot of people couldn't even do half of what you did, what you just spoke about. That's really amazing.
Oh, yes, but that was just the starting point. What was interesting is when I talked to the teachers, they said, this sounds amazing. And they said, does this work for everybody? And I said, no, it's for the super motivated and the super intelligent kids. They said, come back when it works for everybody. So I came back 8 years later. Took me that long to figure out what was going on. This is where I learned from my professors. They said, by the time you get done with your career over 50 years, you can sum it up in less than a half an hour. So here is what I learned during that time. This is the top book on dyslexia, Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale. That's dyslexia. See how the back part of your brain has this massive neural activity? Back part of the dyslectic has next to nothing. But the front part's about 2.5 times overactive.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to use this. We're going to use this. Okay, so when you're using the front part of the brain, what I found is when I'm dealing with normal kids, there had to be a major change. Number one, above everything else, we had to focus on the kid's speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. So I want to give you an example of one of my students. Her name is Casey. Just so everybody knows, I never saw this before, Casey. I will never see this again. Of the hundreds of teachers I've taught, none of them will ever see anything like this. It's a one-off edge case to make a point. Casey came from a lower middle-class family in the Midwestern United States. She was very interested in Theodore Roosevelt. She's 10. She turned 11 over the summertime. So I assigned her this insane book, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. 900 pages of it. This thing is at the 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask. Casey's reading like she's in second grade. And nobody told her to do this. This is just Casey. She went up to her room, shut the door for 3 hours a night for the next 6 months. Most of the days during the summertime. 8, 10-hour days. At the end of that time period, you could flip to this random page, point to that random word, and she would tell you the exact dictionary definition. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months. And I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
Wow, that's really amazing. I want to take things a step back for just a moment, because you pointed out to that diagram of the two brains with somebody with dyslexia and somebody who does not have dyslexia. For people who are like watching this and they're not familiar with exactly what dyslexia is or does, can you maybe, being that you have dyslexia, can you maybe explain to people who are like the uninitiated, don't understand that this, like, what is it like to have dyslexia? Like, what are the struggles that people with dyslexia have that people who may not understand their world, what they go through? So can you maybe explain to people, like, what is it like having dyslexia? What are the struggles? I mean, aside from the neurological differences you pointed out in the diagram, like, how is like your life different? Like, what are the, things that you maybe help other people understand what you go through, or what you think they should understand what people with dyslexia go through?
Okay, well, let's take a look at, first of all, how far did you go in your education?
I have a master's degree.
Okay, so I want you to think that we're going to equate academic and career success to your ability to play a sport that you suck at. The sport that I suck at the most is basketball. I mean, I'm horrible. What sport do you suck at? Yeah, but which one are you especially really bad?
Golf. I'll say I struggle a lot in golf.
So golf. Let's say for the next 6 months, you're going to get the best golf teacher in the country, in the world. We're going to get you the best equipment. I mean, we're talking clubs that'll cost $500,000. All right, and you're going to practice 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then at the end of that, we're going to have you compete against a guy your age who played Division I golf in university, but we're going to give him used Walmart equipment that should be in the dumpster. Is it going to make any difference?
I think a little bit of a difference. I mean,
but is he still going to just crush you?
Yeah.
Okay. But we're accommodating your golf disability. That's the same thing that's going on with gen ed. So I want you to think back to any time in your education, if you did two things. If you set up a proper study schedule, number one, and then number two, you worked really hard, you did well to amazing. Does that sound familiar?
And sometimes, yes.
No, but in general, if you studied properly,
yes.
Yeah, you were fine. With a dyslectic, back part of the brain, nothing's going on. They could take one class in university while you're taking 5, spend 5 times longer study for it, and still do horribly. Okay, if it's outside their speciality. That's what it's like until we get to grad school. Because remember when you went through university, kindergarten through the first 2 years, they wanted you to be well-rounded. You kind of specialized a little bit in your last 2 years, but when you hit your master's, you really specialized, and they wanted you to actually add value to what you were learning. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
The dyslexic doesn't do well until grad school. So to give you another example, ever hear of this little show called Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Okay, dyslexics make up less than 10% of the population. There are 6 sharks. How many of the Shark Tank sharks do you think are dyslexic?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I never knew any of them were. I would have guessed 0. Really?
Half. Barbara, Damien, and the bald guy, Mr. Wonderful. It is a surprisingly, exceedingly strong advantage out in the real world. So to understand how we need to fix this, as parents, what I need you to understand is the school district will not change. They want to make people well-rounded until they specialize in later in college. They will not change that. They will not allow the dyslexic to focus on their speciality. Therefore, if you ask when I asked Casey, when I moved her from something she loved to something she hated, I asked her how much of her motivation did it go down? And she said about 50%. The most motivated kid I ever worked with at that age, her motivation was down about 50%. Most kids, they're down 75 to 90%. For ADD, ADHD, and dyslexics, you will now lose your ability to do an intervention because they are so against doing anything. So you have to do their speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability. That means parents, this is on you. Don't worry. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions a couple times a week. That's it. That's what most parents do. I'm lucky if I can get 4. Usually it's round 2. So we focus on the kid's speciality. We pick a book and an audiobook that they're interested in. Number 2, if you ask a dyslexic, and this is key, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed? Key question, but with little to no organization. They're going to say yes. So in their speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is we have to force the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me put that into English. If you were given this paper, let's call it the 10th grade level, could you just go to a research library for a couple of weeks and write it up with no more instructions? What effect did Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s?
I'm not sure.
Think about it. You go to a research library. You got all the books there, your local university. The question is, what effect did Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech have on the American Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s? You go and get a lot of books on that subject. Could you write up a high school research paper but just based on that?
Yeah, probably.
Yes, because you like these instructions. Big picture, eventually going down to details. Okay? That's how you like being asked to do things?
Not always. I don't have a particular way. I can work either way.
Okay. Well, for a lot of gen ed, high school, college-bound kids, they love that. But for a dyslexic, it's like grabbing fog. Nothing to reach. So we got to flip that script. We got to start off at a very specific point and eventually go out. So we would ask, what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? And then we go to his biography and we look at that time period. And then we find an answer. That answer gives us a question, which gives us an answer, which gives us a question. We keep going that way. We start out at a very specific point and slowly go out. That forces the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. And then what we do is we look at this book again, Overcoming Dyslexia, front part of the brain. This deals with word analysis followed by articulation. That's next. So what I want to do is walk you through on how to do that on a advanced body paragraph. And with that, I will show you how you can improve your writing. Also, how you can show dyslexics how to read. Something you can actually use with your kids tonight. So how I start off doing that is, number one, we have to assume the kid can write basic sentences and basic body paragraphs. We have courses for that. But I'm going to start off with the advanced version because this also works very well with gen ed students. Best way I like to describe that is through a universal theme. And the best way I found to explore that is with a movie review. So I need to ask you a movie that meets three criteria. Number one, in your opinion, it's one of the best you've ever seen. Number two, you know it intimately. Number three, preferably everybody's seen it. What's the name of that movie?
Star Wars.
Okay, which one?
Like the first one, or like the first three that came out. Was it back in the 70s or early 80s? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to let's do the first two, Star Wars: A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. You're going to find this interesting, all right? So first of all, what I need you to do is to reduce A New Hope to a one-word universal theme that best represents the movie with your own unique viewpoint. And this is hard.
One word or one sentence?
One word. That's all you get.
Oh, my gosh. That's... I've never had somebody ask me to come up with one word to describe a whole entire movie. Especially a movie like Star Wars, which I think is really complex. I think it's multi-layered. It has like a lot of different...
It is. Remember what I said. This is really hard.
I would say transcendental.
Okay, transcendental. Now, what is your local high school?
What do you mean, what is my local high school?
What's your local state-supported school, high school?
That I go to? Or that I went to?
No, just where you live. What's your local hhigh school?
There are a lot of like local high schools.
Or just pick one.
I mean, like Broward County Public School.
Okay, so we went to Broward County Public High School, and we walk into the teachers who teach the seniors, and we say, "Who is your smartest dyslexic? Who's your best one? Who's the most brilliant, the most motivated?" And let's call him Jason. How long do you think it would take Jason to come up with a one-word universal theme compared to you?
I have no idea.
Almost instantaneously. Why am I spending so much time on this? Here's this is your part of the brain. This is his. He's got 2.5 times the neural activity. You're now playing in our sandbox. There are advantages to being dyslexic. This is one of them. So the reason why I'm spending so much time on this is you have a master's degree. You are statistically, as a percentage of the population, one of the most educated adults out there. Okay, most people don't have the ability to go through a master's degree. Most people just don't. You did. This is the advantage of being dyslexic. We come up with that at most within a couple of seconds. All right, so we're going to take advantage of that. Now, here's the problem that I found when I did this. We came up with a broad brush. So as you realized when you were in your master's program, did you notice that you went to the smaller and smaller and more specific problems as you advanced in your education, especially your last year of a master's program?
Yeah, it got more like deeper and
very specific. We have a broad brush. How do we get more specific? So I had to go to the professors and I had to ask, in English language history, who is the best at communicating complex ideas in writing? And with that one, they kind of terrified me because they came up with one word, one guy, Shakespeare. And for a dyslexic, this was not fun. So I'm going to traumatize part of your audience just for a moment because we're going back to high school English. For a moment, I just want you to think of any Shakespeare play you ever read. You had a hero. Hero wants to do something based on one or more universal themes. Then you have an ultimate villain. who's a character based on some concepts with some universal themes that is trying to prevent the hero from accomplishing the goal. They interact in Act 1 with a conflict, go crazy in Act 2, resolve Act 3. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
We're going to simplify that a little bit. So I'm going to walk you through the obvious one for Star Wars and give you kind of a shock for the ultimate villain. Because we're going to combine Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. So, who's the hero of Star Wars? And it's so obvious.
It's Luke Skywalker.
Yes. So then what we're going to do is have you, the student, type out on a real laptop computer, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not handwriting. Typing on a real laptop computer, this doesn't work. Then they're going to type out 5 to 20 paragraphs. Each paragraph is at least 5 sentences. And the kids looked at me like, 20 paragraphs? I said, yes, I do this with PhD candidates. They do 20 paragraphs. You're probably going to do 5. So they type out their basically 25 sentences. And I said, for each sentence, you're going to pull out the most important word. You're going to type it out. Then you're going to go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, find your exact definition that you like, and you're going to type that out, the word and the definition for all 25. Then you're going to pick the one that where the definition best matches in your head. And parents, I don't care if the kid's an Eagle Scout like I was, you can't trust them because they're going to want to copy and paste. It's not allowed. They're going to have to type out everything. So then they pick the one where the definition best matches what's in their head. That's our base universal theme. But just like the universal theme you gave me, broad brush. So now what we're going to have to do is put it into the thesaurus. And you can do 5 synonyms, 10 synonyms, the entire level, multiple levels. Most people do like 10. So then you're going to take the first synonym, type it out, and then go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, find the definition, and type that out. And at this point, the kids explode. What's with all the freaking typing? And I said, do you know we kind of have to teach you how to read? Yeah. I said, well, we could do the Orton-Gillingham approach. And once they found out what it is, they don't want to do it. And it would cost you $75,000 a year for about 4 to 5 years, just tuition. It's just for most people, it's just not usable. So then I said, after you type this out a certain number of times, you will know it. And for the parents, the kid's going to say, I know it. And the parents need to look at the definition from the dictionary and say, is that about exactly correct? If not, keep retyping. Eventually, they will get it. Here's why this is so important. You're about to understand dyslexia at a much deeper level than most dyslexics professors. Very serious question. Front part of the brain, 2.5 times overactive. Starts off with word analysis. Here's my really hard question. How can you apply word analysis unless you know exactly what the word means? If you don't know exactly what the word means, how can you apply word analysis?
I guess. I mean, you can try to make it up.
You can try to make it up, but you really can't. You can't apply it. You have to know exactly what the word is, which means you have to type it out a tremendous amount of times until you have it. This is going to be you're going to work on your kid with this for 12 to 18 months. Eventually, you can trust them not to type, and they'll just go off and do this on their own. After that time period, they're going to come back, and they're going to have a vocabulary of hundreds and hundreds of evolved words. This is similar to a version of what Casey did. Then I do this when they're 11 and 12. When they're 16 to 17 taking the SATs or the ACTs, the verbal section is just a vocabulary test. My kids don't need to do list of advanced words. They did it in middle school. Okay? So that's how we solve reading. So then you find of those 10, the one that best matches what's in your head. And that's because it is not perfect, but much closer to what's in your head, the definition. We can now use that as a lens to pick the ultimate villain. Now, I'm going to ask you, who's the ultimate villain in Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back?
It's obviously Darth Vader.
Yes, but we're doing the advanced body paragraph. A lot of my kids actually come up with Uncle Owen.
Really?
Okay, let's go back to Star Wars. What is it that Luke wants to do?
I just find out who he really is, and at the same time help the good guys fight the Empire.
Yes, and Uncle Owen wants him to stay safe and become a farmer. Now, can you see how in that point of view, Uncle Owen's the ultimate villain in a certain point of view?
I guess, yeah, if you see it in that perspective.
Right. So the whole point of doing it this way is to find solutions, an answer that most people don't see. And then what that would allow you to do is the student can then go in and argue that in a university and go back and forth and have a real discussion with the professor, which is what they want. So then we take those and we put it in a basic sentence. Do you see how that's an advanced form of word analysis?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Now we're going to do, this is much quicker. We're almost done. We're going to do articulate. We're going to do articulation. And I'm going to show you how to improve your ability to write body paragraphs. All right. Do you think it's kind of weird that what I teach middle school dyslexic kids can teach a person with a master's degree how to write better body paragraphs?
Yeah, I guess.
So the big thing I'm trying to get across to people is this works great with gen ed kids as well. And this is the secret I'm going to come up with comes from, it's a core piece of The Craft of Research, which is a book that anybody outside of a PhD candidate doesn't understand this process we're about to go into. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with 3 really good reasons. Each reason we're going to reduce to a simple universal theme. And then we're going to go to the scripts of A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. That's assuming that's what the kids' speciality is. They really love these scripts. And we're going to look for an exact quote that deals with that universal theme at the beginning of the content and one at the end. One sentence that deals exactly with that universal theme. We're going to put those together. That's our data. Now, I want you to think about what teachers tell me. I can't assign the homework to the kids to write anymore because of AI. I said, well, you can now because you can show them their work like a math program, like a math problem. So that you know it's not AI. All right? Teachers love this. So now we have 2 sentences, and each body paragraph is going to have 2 quotes. So you know this isn't a BS paper. From those 2 quotes, we're going to form our topic sentence. Now, in your time in grad school, did you notice that going from a topic sentence to your data, it didn't flow very well?
No, I mean, I didn't have that issue.
Oh, okay. You're one of the few writers that didn't have that issue. For a lot of writers, going from your topic sentence to your data, it doesn't flow very well. So the Craft of Research recommends that you apply a warrant to a body paragraph. That's answering a how question and a why question. I start out having the kids answer a how question in one sentence, then a why question in one sentence, then I blend them together into one sentence over time. So you got your topic sentence, your warrant, which is a one sentence answering a how question, a why question, then your data. Then it flows well. And that's how you do the basic parts of an advanced body paragraph.
Wow, looks like you spend a lot of time like coming up with these strategies to help, students with.
Yeah, and parents, just because of what I'm doing here, one of the most advanced students I'm working with, his name is Grayson. He's not dyslexic in the least. He's in the 99th percentile for math and 99th percentile in science. Okay? Grayson wants to get his PhD, work at NASA to terraform Mars. So I'm taking PhD peer-reviewed articles, knocking them down to 12th grade reading, 3rd grade college level content. Grayson's on the young side. How old do you think he is?
25.
He's 10.
10.
Yes. His father's teaching the process I just went through with you.
I guess he's some type of genius.
Oh, he's a savant. He's a genius. So, but that is an example that the super smart Gen Ed kids are using this exact process that I teach dyslexics. They go a lot faster. The dyslexics go a lot deeper.
Wow,
Right,
that's
so
really amazing.
yes.
I want
So
to ask you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What do you wish like parents understood when they first notice that their child starts struggling with reading or writing at an early age?
I'm glad you asked, because the waiting thing. We're in the United States. A federal judge is appointed by the President of the United States, confirmed by the U.S. Senate, and recommended to the President by the senior senator of the state. A federal judge says waiting is considered gross negligence. This is why. If your kid is dyslexic and you contact Yale, just Google Yale dyslexia and ask them, how do I get my kid tested for dyslexia? Cost about $50 a kid, and the teacher can do it in class. Now that you find out they're dyslexic, you have to understand the United States, from kindergarten through third grade, we learn to read. Fourth and above, we read to learn. So then they say, here are all these programs on how to fix this, some of which have been around before you were born. Like $1 million each. Pick what you want. Kindergarten through the end of third grade. Then the kid should pass the third grade reading and writing test. Note that I said pass. Most of them, it's like a 65 or a 70. I'm not talking about doing great. I'm talking about passing. They should be okay, or they should be close, which they can then fix in fourth and fifth grade with a lot more effort, but nothing crazy. If they waited, they're going to flunk that test with honors, like I did. I really flunked that sucker. Then you get to go to a school like the Windward Academy in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which take a lot of kids in fourth grade and fifth grade, especially. They're there for about 4 to 5 years with a 98% success rate. That's $75,000 a year in tuition. Teacher to student ratio of 5 to 1 or less. See why waiting is not a good idea?
You pay a really big price.
Yes, or I can use modern science to show parents I don't compete with Yale. If your kid's in kindergarten through third grade, I recommend you go and just contact Yale. They can tell you what to do. When they're fourth and above, that's when we start working with kids typically. And we show you how to do this at $147 with a certified teacher named Angela, who's a certified elementary school teacher with a 2-year master's degree, 11 years of experience, and now is a homeschooling mom and has taught this to her dyslexic son and her super STEM older son, Gen Ed son, as well. So she's there every week to answer questions.
Now, some children that have like dyslexia or other learning disabilities may feel that they're dumb or not good enough or something's wrong with them. How can parents or teachers help them replace like these limiting beliefs and empower them with having more self-confidence?
Well, let's go and look at the science again. You're trying to teach them with this part of the brain, and we got nothing going on. How do you teach nothing? Okay, so we got to have the intervention, like I said, and focus on the front part. Get their reading and writing up to grade level. So let me give you an example. I'm having a book come out, I think in December, called "If You Write, You Can Read." My test case was a homeschooling mom named Kimberly and her 10-year-old dyslexic son, Reed, at the time. I met her on December 27th to 24. A few weeks before, she spent $700 and had the state of Ohio test her kids. Her 4 Gen Ed kids read brilliantly with traditional methods. Reed was reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 5th percentile. I worked with Kimberly for half an hour a week for the next 8 months. She worked with Reed for an hour and a half a week for the next 8 months. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. She's a homeschooling mom. Over the summer of 25, Reed's friends came to him and said, "Reed, we want you with us in public school for social reasons, to be in class with us, lunch and everything." So beginning of August of 25, he was being tested in a public school. 8.5 months later. if Kimberly doubled or even tripled where he was, he would still be placed in special ed. He would have just left because he wants to be with his friends in class. That's the point, not academics. Didn't happen. His reading jumped from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing jumped from the 65th percentile, from the 5th percentile to the 65th. What happened during 6th grade? He got mainly A's and B's. English was C+. Kimberly was happy with those results, and now he was in normal classes with his friends, and now he's going back in 7th grade. Kimberly did in less than 9 months what the private schools take 4 to 5 years. That's how powerful this is.
Well, I want to ask you, based on what you're saying, is that, people learn in different ways. I mean, how can parents identify whether the child learns best either visually or auditory or hands-on or movement-based?
Yes. And what I need everybody to understand is those are secondary questions. If your child is ADD, ADHD, or dyslexic, question number one is, what is your speciality? You step outside of that speciality, the motivation drops 75 to 90%. That's the big one. We go after the biggest problems first. Then we ask them, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So we force the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output, not going from big picture to details, but specific to the general. Then we do word analysis followed by articulation. Within that, I do give them audiobooks that they like. That's usually a couple of years ahead of where they want to be. And then we get them the printed book, and we apply that process that I went through with you. Okay? And going word analysis followed by articulation. And they will put in the time because they love the material. And now they're finally learning what they're really interested in. To give you an example, my most popular book is this one. I will give this to 10-year-olds, all 1,000 pages. This is for 11th grade. Have you ever been to Disney World or Disneyland?
Yeah.
The kids that are fanatical about Disney, they want to know what the Disney magic is. I said, it's 2 universal themes. The first one anybody can find in 5 minutes. The second most important one, well, once you can find that, you can read. And I would take kids, and it would take anywhere from 1 to 2 years for them to find that. 1 to 2 years. And they are fanatically going through that book. Once they find it, I will ask parents with master's degrees, okay, anybody can find the first universal theme in 5 minutes, which they do. I said, okay, what's the second one? I never had a parents find it. One example, the mom had a master's degree in education. And I said, okay, she can't find it. So then her 12-year-old daughter goes, Mom, it's right there. And she just threw her head back. I can't believe I didn't see it. I'm like, well, did I do my job? And she said yes. I said, it's word analysis followed by articulation. Your daughter has 2.5 times the neural activity. The daughter's now in 7th grade, reading material for a high school junior. She's the best reader in her class.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, well, also, back then, parents could afford to take their kids to Disney World. Now it's much tougher. What I do with some of the motivationally starved kids is I'll have the parents who could theoretically afford these private schools at, 75, 80 grand a year. And I would say, Main Street, they would say to their parents, I need to go to Disney World, to the Magic Kingdom, to learn to read. And the parents come back, what is my kid talking about? Remember, these are families making like 200 grand a year, so they can do this. I said, do you know Marceline, Missouri? The book, it's about 9th grade level. It's about 3,800 words. That's Main Street, USA. That's where Walt was between 5 and 10, and he spent his entire life trying to get back there. So the parents took their kid to Disney World, then to Marceline, Missouri, and then back to Disney World after the kid could read that section, which was at the 9th grade level. And by I mean read it, I mean they knew every word, every definition of every word. And they said, if we went to a private school, this would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's where they had the funds to go and to do that. And the kid just flew through the rest of the book. And we were done in about 18 months, which was pretty quick.
I mean, do you think there's like, what do you say to parents? They say like don't have a lot of money and they have a child with learning disabilities, dyslexia or ADD. I mean, is there hope that even if like they're poor, they don't have a lot of money that they
Yes,
can give their child with a proper education?
We work with families like that. We give scholarships for what we do for financially challenged families is for a scholarship. I require a letter from a community leader, be it a high school principal, their minister, somebody of note that said the family's really serious about solving this and the kid is really serious about doing it. I find that by doing that, I don't have to deal with the tire kickers. And then we find a way, we reduce the price to something that's affordable for them. And then they get to see Angela twice a month. And everything's online at a learning platform called school.com. And they just work through it until the problem's solved.
So do you think like schools today rely heavily on one standard method of teaching and measuring intelligence that may not be applicable, as you said, to people with like different learning styles, whether it's dyslexia, ADD, or something else?
Yeah, the problem with the schools isn't so much the intelligence. I'm just going to go back and just again look at the science. They're teaching 80+% of their kids are like this. What does that mean when they translate things? That means if you focus on the big picture, eventually going down into details. All right. If the kid just sets up a proper study schedule and works hard, 80+% of them are going to do very well. The dyslexic doesn't work, and that's the problem. That's what we have to deal with. So what I tell parents is you have to pull them out at night, work with them until their reading and writing get up to a grade level, then you send them back in and like read, they'll be okay. But you're the one that has to do this because the kid will only do the speciality that they're interested in. And if you go outside of that, as I said, their motivation's down 75 to 90%. You will fail for that main reason. It's really that simple. And the schools will not budge. I had a New York State senator connect me to a very wealthy private school, very wealthy public school, when we had two members of a New York State non-for-profit talking to him saying, how can this super wealthy school be so bad over generations with this? And it ended up being a blow-off. They will not change.
Do you have any statistics about like how many people, like the population in the United States, either have like ADD or dyslexia?
Sure. Dyslexia is a super severe reading and writing disorder, as well as the lack of organization that we talked about. That's 5 to 10% of the population. If you add ADD and ADHD, you're talking combined with dyslexia, 15 to 20%. ADD and ADHD is like dyslexia. The only difference is you don't have the huge reading and writing issues. You might have some mild ones, but nothing like a dyslexic.
So how do like parents know like if their child to determine? I mean, aside from your program, because there's a lot of like programs of tutoring out there that it's really sufficient to help their kids, help them with their dyslexia or anything like that. Is like certain questions or things they should look at to say, hey, like this, maybe if they hire like a tutor or get a tutor that's really going to help them.
Yeah, the other stuff doesn't work. The ones that do work are, I'll give you an example. Go to gow.org or go to the Windward Academy and Google that. They work. They've been using an Orton-based approach, the Gowl School. This is their 100th anniversary. The others, it's literally a student-to-teacher ratio of 5 to 1 or 4 to 1, and it takes 2 years to become certified and $11,000 to a non-for-profit. And I've had families that decided to go that route, and I recommended them. And a rich family would get an Orton tutor when the kid's in 5th grade. And when they're in their PhD program, the tutor's still with them. All right. These other stuff, it's they're stripped down versions that don't work that well. They just don't. So how do you figure out? Well, boys and girls are different. So what I'm going to tell you is the general rule. This isn't for everybody, but most of the time. For boys, you ask them what to do something they can't do, and you embarrass them because they can't read in front of class. They tend to have temper tantrums. So I would have a parent who would contact me because their 5-year-old picked up a desk and threw it as far as he could. Now, he's 5. It's not going very far. I said, okay, contact Yale and have them tell you how to test for dyslexia. So they put all the pressure in the world on their school district. And they came back, he's dyslexic. I said, great. Now contact Yale again and tell you how to fix this. And they put a lot of pressure on the school district, and they did. And I kept checking in. The kid passed the 3rd grade reading and writing test. They had no need for me. They just fixed it doing how it should be done. Girls, on the other hand, tend to be quiet. They just take it. So if you're noticing in kindergarten that your daughter or granddaughter is not learning how to write her name, can't do the ABCs, you want to get her tested. That's why people think it's more boys than girls. It's not that. It's just that boys will tend to act out. And I have heard a lot of times, I get called in all the time. The kids in the principal's office, they want to suspend them because he's crying because he took a desk. One kid literally threw it in 3rd grade through a window. And I said, did you test him for dyslexia? No. I said, well, if the parents sue you in federal court, the judge is going to call you grossly negligent. You want to pay a $500,000 legal bill? Get him tested. And what do you know? He's dyslexic. And then I said, okay, you're too late. You can't use the Yale thing. Here's how you do it. They did that, and the kid was corrected. All right. Then no more temper tantrums. But that's just something I've been seeing for the past 20 years. And it's something I experienced myself being dyslexic. I didn't throw a desk around because my father would have killed me, but I wanted to a lot.
Wow, that's really interesting. So I want to also ask you about AI, because everybody's talking about AI these days. How can AI help either parents or students with their dyslexia or ADD or learning disabilities? Because maybe they don't know, like, how can, what applications or prompts or what do you think are some like good ways that, they can use AI to help their kids be a better learner?
Well, just so everybody knows, we met on Podmatch. I am the 2nd most reviewed Podmatch person on Podmatch with over 300 5-star reviews. And I've been on like 24 shows as an AI expert. First thing, until a student can do an advanced body paragraph, several more steps than what I showed you, until they can do that, I don't want them touching AI. Because here's my example. Back in the fall of 1992, I was an engineering science major. In calculus-based physics, my father could spend $300 he saved up for a graphical calculator. The poorer kids asked, well, the rich kids have these graphical calculators. They can save 8 megabytes of formulas. Can we bring in a sheet with the formulas? The professor said, okay, this is not like a history test. This is different. You have to apply what you know. You can come to my office. I will give you 8 hours instead of 3. You can bring your notebook, your textbook, any book you want. 2 things you can't bring: a phone and Uncle Bob. And he said, if you can't apply to what you learn, none of that will help you. So what I learned from that was the kids have to know how to write an advanced body paragraph, an advanced essay before I let them use AI for academia. Once we do that, I want everybody to understand what happened. Anthropic's Claude Fable 5 came out. This does the work now. We don't do the work. We need to do 3 things. Number 1, in what we're going into, our speciality, the dyslexics have a huge advantage. We have to know what good looks like, and when it's not good, we have to know how to fix it. And people can't explain that. They just know how to do it. Number 2, you have to know how to go from A to D. If the A to B, the AI is really good at that. It doesn't know how to go to A to D. So you need to know what good looks like, how to fix it when it's not, and then you can be shown how to instruct the AI. It's very simple. So I tell parents when they're ready to get the $200 Anthropic Max plan and a $20 OpenAI plan. And I show them how to use that material. And when they're done, the kids are extremely employable. And I mean extremely.
Wow, that's really amazing. So I want to ask you a couple of out-of-the-box questions. If, like, you have the ability to eliminate grades and standardized tests for 1 year at a particular school, how would you, like, design, like, a better system to identify, like, you know, a child's intelligence or their creativity or potential?
Okay, well, number one, I'm all for grades. I'm for basically what I do is I take what you do in a master's program and I drop it down to middle school, just a lighter version. So what we do is we show students how to come up with a proper problem statement and then a proper solution based on that, where the reader learns something, what I like to call a whiff of originality. Something that 'cause I want you to imagine this. Imagine you're in an, let's just assume we got a bunch of dyslexics that love Shakespeare. I can't imagine it, but let's assume we had that. And we're in an advanced placement English class. Do you realize for Romeo and Juliet, the top kids have been writing the same paper for the past 100 years? They all write the same damn paper. Now imagine you pick up a paper and you actually learn something. A whiff of originality. Like, are you a coffee drinker?
Yeah, I like coffee.
Okay. Now I want you to imagine, you know how that you have that great smell?
Yeah.
That's what I mean, a whiff of originality. So we've developed ways to go significantly beyond that. Imagine reading a paper in Romeo and Juliet where you actually learn something reasonably significant. You learn something. And the other 49 papers are the exact darn same thing from advanced people. That's what we're here to show dyslexics. So what's going on is in New York State, this is the last year of the high school regents. That's what we call it for our high school final reading and writing test. This is the last year it's required. They're moving to project-based. We need to up the quality of that project-based. So have you ever heard of this guy called from Khan Academy?
No.
Okay, so Bill Gates he was teaching his kids, this was decades ago, how to do advanced math, high school math or middle school, whatever it was, and they're using his YouTube videos. He made it for his niece. Bill Gates called up and said, "You want $10 million to start to do this as a non-for-profit?" They're now creating a college for the whole thing will be under $4,000. I'm sorry, under $10,000 for the whole thing, where they're going to McKinsey, Boston Consulting, JP Morgan, finding out what they want the kids to know how to do once they get out and making it all project-based. This is a version of that. I've taken the craft of research and I made it accessible for middle school dyslexic and high school dyslexic kids. So they need to focus on that and learn those skills in their speciality, and then they will be very highly employable. I was told when I was in grad school, I had to become valuable enough to get an administrative assistant. That's kind of what the assembly did for me. I had access to 3. Now it's a $200 a month Claude subscription. Much easier to tell a company to do $200 a month. And I'm producing now more work in a day than I used to do in years. And that's not a joke.
Yeah, definitely AI has made a big change in everybody's lives and definitely in our productivity. It's like a totally different world now, thanks to AI.
Oh, yes, but I am literally like a kid they would want to customize material. And I do that. My editing process alone takes 4 hours in ChatGPT over like 40, 50 runs. And I'm just there doing run 1, run 2, next run. And I'm doing 3 things at once with AI. So a lot of people do 10. I can't do that. And a lot of people are finding they're working harder now. I'm using it intense, maybe 4 to 6 hours a day. And then I move up, and then I go and, actually go swimming for a couple hours. But I will give Claude coworker, I have Fable 5 as the manager, and I have as the designer, manager, and evaluator, and they send out Sonnet 5 agents to do the work. All right, and I'll set it up, and then I'll go and come back. And then usually about a half hour after I get back, it's done working, and then I go and do the next thing. But it allows me the freedom to get the work done if I need to from my phone when I'm away. And dyslexia, it's a super advantage for this. It is such an unfair advantage with this. Because we can, remember what I said, you have to know what good looks like, and when it's not good, how to fix it. Dyslexics learn that so much more rapidly in their speciality. And then to go from A to D, literally, I'll then show my kids how to go to talk to Fable 5. Well, I want to do this, I don't know how to do it. I'm good at 50,000 feet. And then Fable 5 figures out how to make the connections. It showed them how to connect. And then you write it out, and then it goes up, and this is what happens. It always goes up to a senior human. And their boss looks it over and says, wow, this is really good. And they don't mind spending the 2 to 3 hours to look at it, say, here's the problem, here's what you need to do, I want this, get rid of this, and they go back and work on it with Fable 5. All right? And the bosses don't, this is what I'm constantly hearing, they don't mind spending the 2 to 3 hours to really look it over, because this is really valuable stuff. Now, who do you think gets the promotion?
The person knows how to use AI the best.
Well, yeah, and I'm showing them how to use it through word analysis followed by articulation. And that's the advantage of, remember when I asked you about Star Wars and what's the unique, and it took you a while?
Yeah.
All right. That's the advantage of a dyslexic. All right. This is what we're really good at.
So that may change, like, the tables will turn, and people who have, like, learning disabilities like dyslexia will actually, have more of an advantage. It's
right. So let me give you an example of how to use. Let's say you have a $200 Claude subscription. You can do half your time with Fable 5, half with the other ones. Let's say we want to do something. I'll say to Fable 5, you are the manager. First of all, you are Fable 5. You're forbidden from doing any work. You're the designer, the manager, the evaluator. You send out SONNET 5 agents to do the work. So I'm doing voice to text. I literally have to spell it out. I tell it, if you're going to set a super high bar, if you're not happy with it, send the Sonnet 5 agent back until you're happy with it. Then I'll say, this is what I want to do. Then I'll say, end quote, where am I smart? Where am I not smart? How do I fix not smart? And it'll tell me. And then when it tells me what it wants to do, I'll say, great, now tell me how to do that in a detailed narrative. And then wait for my approval. And then it does. Now, here's the key thing. Anthropic's really cut back your usage by like 50% in the last month or so. So then I tell it, I say, thank you. Now I need you to rewrite this to be as token efficient as reasonably possible. Please note the word reasonably. I want the same results you promised above, the same as super high quality results. I just want it done as token efficiency as reasonably possible. Write it out in a detailed narrative. I want to see it broken up into parts. I want to see those checked as you go through. The last sentence, I say, what percentage of the tokens you think we'll save based on this new token efficient plan? Once you're done writing, you have my approval to execute. And then it will. This takes a bit longer, but I'm saving between 30 and 80% of the tokens, normally around 50% aggregated. I have now doubled my usage.
So for parents that are listening to our conversation today and they feel like confused, they're not sure like what to do with like the child who has dyslexia or a learning disability, what do you suggest with like the first 3 steps that parents do if they think that their children has learning like dyslexia, or they may just figure out that they were diagnosed? What do you think should be the first 3 steps?
Well, what I tell parents is if they're in kindergarten, beginning of first grade, contact Yale. K through 3rd, they will tell you. Those are the people to deal with it. Just Google Yale dyslexia. Number 2, if they're 4th and above and they failed the 3rd grade reading and writing test, you really have 2 options. I would contact the GOW.org school, the Gal school, or Windward. Okay? The reason why I just keep bringing up Windward is they have a proven 98% statistical success rate over 4 to 5 years. If you want to go that route, you will be like if you send your kid to Gowell, you will be so incredibly pleased with the result from all aspect of how they take your child in 5th grade, and by the time they graduate, what they do, you will be so pleased with the result. If you don't have the $500,000 to do this, then you can come to me at dyslexiaclasses.com. It's with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com, and we can show you how to teach your child you can teach your child yourself until they get up to grade level, and then you can put them back in and do normal classes, and they'll be okay.
So if somebody had a question or they're interested in reaching out to you for help, what is the best way they can contact you?
Best thing to do is just go to dyslexiaclasses.com and everything's right there. We set things up so we're easy to contact. Just look out, starting in September, I'm going to have on our skool.com community, just type in Dyslexia Classes for the ones for parents. What's going to happen is I'm going to be available every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Time to answer parents' questions. I do ask that you send them to me at least 3 days in advance so I can aggregate them, because most parents ask the same thing.
Well, Russell, before we end our conversation today, is there any final words you'd like to share with our audience?
Just basically, you have to understand that we now understand the science of dyslexia, and it's focus on the kid's speciality, teach them from the specific to the general, word analysis followed by articulation until they're at grade level or above. Then you send them back into normal school, and there will be some pushback, but they'll be okay. That's the way to do it, or contact the Gowell School at gow.org and go that way. Either way, you'll be happy. I'm just trying to do it so you don't have to sell your house. And I just want your kid to get their concerns corrected so that they have the option of going on to university if they want, or going on for a 2-year community college to become like an electrician, an auto mechanic, or whatever. I want them to have the options and not have the doors closed to them like I had.
Well, Russell, I want to thank you so much for coming on our show today and sharing all about your knowledge and expertise, as well as like your experiences. It's really invaluable. I mean, you're discussing a very important topic that I think a lot of people don't feel brave enough to talk about. And I think something that educators should discuss more. And, you know, I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, because a lot of kids, I think, need help with their education and learning. And I'm glad that people out there like you that are trying to make the world a better place.
Yes. Well, I've been at it for 25 years, and I remember what I gave up to get here. The friends that I went to the assembly with are now looking towards retirement, and I'm going to be doing this when I'm 90.